My name's Brent Gaswick. I'm from the Department of Ed. But I'm here to talk to you today about flipped classrooms, not because I'm an expert on flipped classrooms by any means, but I'm going to give you some ideas. I'm going to talk to you what flipped classrooms are. So let's look at what flipped classrooms are. Some of it's a marketing ploy. Some of it is an idea that came out of two teachers in Colorado we'll look at. As we go through the presentation today, I have three things I'd like to go through with you. I'd like to define what the flipped classroom is or isn't, ways that you could begin flipping the classroom in the elementary, and then we'll look at some resources. So on this article it says flipped classrooms are not about replacing teachers with videos. And it's not students working without structure. It's not them spending the entire time on the classroom looking at the computer, and it's not students working in isolation. The flipped classroom. The classroom idea is that it inverts the model. I'm going to go to the board. I'm going to show you, right? That's how teachers talk. Flipped classroom says no. The teacher is not going to start the day with that. That's what they do at home. Maybe there was a podcast that you gave them. Maybe you had an assignment with your parents tonight. Go to Google and Google search the additive process and be ready to explain what that is tomorrow. And then tomorrow when you come into the classroom, in the flipped classroom, instead of the teacher standing up and lecturing, what's the teacher do? Any ideas? If I don't have to stand up and teach you the process, now what am I doing? Having who show you? The kids. Good. So you become the guide on the side instead of the, have we heard this one before? The sage on the stage. So here's the theoretical framework for a flipped classroom. You have two tiers off the classroom. You have the uses. What has made it possible to start talking flipped classrooms? The things you're all holding. I think most all of you have some sort of technology. Then the other side is it's learning through activity. You're no longer sending homework home for them to do. Where's the homework being done? In the classroom with you while you're watching. How many times does it take to learn something correctly? You have to do it how many times before you have it memorized? Roughly about 20 times. If you do a math problem 20 times correctly, you're going to have that memorized and it's going to be mastered. What happens if you learn it wrong? You can triple the number of times they have to do it right to rethink. And ultimately it comes down to it changes the learning environment. Flipped classrooms are going to look a little different than your traditional classroom. So this is just kind of how it came to be. These two gentlemen from Colorado, Jonathan Bergman and Aaron Sarnes at Wood Park High School, started this idea. They took PowerPoints, they made their PowerPoints, and they narrated them. This isn't anything new. They just took it out and they started talking about it. Why is this becoming so popular? Well, 69% of students are all we have nationally graduating. That means 31% of our students don't graduate. Yearly dropouts, 1.3 million students. The other thing that's come along is the prevalence of video. And a lot of people, when you talk online or flipped classrooms, they're going to say it's video. I send the kids out, I watch a video. That's a good place to start. It's not all of it. And just look, in 2007, there were 15% of internet users that had viewed an educational video online. That was 5 years ago. 2010, 30% of internet users. I would guess that in 2012, that's probably going to be more like 50%. So we've kind of talked about how it works. Here's what they say, why it's good to do. Before the flip, 50% of freshmen English failed, and 44% of freshmen failed math. After they flipped it, now they said 19% failed and 13% failed math. The flipping does make a difference. It does help. I want to show you my favorite graphic. On the left is Bloom's taxonomy. The remember, the understand, the apply, the analyze, the evaluate. This is the revised one where one of his students went back in and said the top one is actually create, not the old Bloom model. But the one that I think is more powerful is the one to the right. This is telling you your average retention rates that your students will have on the different models. You will remember 5% of what I'm saying. If you'd have read my book and had all my notes, you'll remember 10% of it. If I'd have made this into a podcast and had you watch that, guess what? 20%. But guess what? When I get my students down to teaching, how much retention do we have? 90%. So what can you do in a flipped classroom? You have the students learn the objective at home. They become learners of it. They come back to school the next day and they teach the concept. So I'm going to jump out here and I'm going to show you a quick video.
As a flipped classroom teacher, I've seen lots of misconceptions around what the flipped classroom is and what the flipped classroom is not. So rather than discussing what the flipped classroom is in my practice, I'll discuss a list that most flipped classroom teachers can agree the flipped classroom is not. So let's get started. The flipped classroom is not the Khan Academy. While the Khan Academy is an excellent resource for use in and out of the classroom, the flipped classroom is special because classroom teachers create the videos to suit their students' needs. We want students to be active in their learning, not droids sitting in front of screens getting lectured with someone halfway across the globe. The videos are an extension of the teacher and help create a strong relationship between student and teacher. The flipped classroom is not a replacement of teachers. This could be further from the truth. In the flipped classroom, the role of the teacher is more important than ever. There's no sitting at the back of the class reading the newspaper and having a coffee, as much as I'd like to sometimes. In the flipped classroom, the teacher is active all day. Teachers get a chance to work with every student, every class. The flipped classroom is not all about the videos. Yeah, videos are the backbone of the flipped classroom, and I am hoping one of these days to produce a video that goes viral and perhaps appear on Ellen. However, it is the flexibility the videos provide that is a true benefit. Teachers now have additional classroom time where they can develop rich learning activities to extend their students' experience. The flipped classroom is not the silver bullet. The flipped classroom does not solve all that is broken in education. If it did, then I'd probably be filthy rich. It's just one tool to increase student learning. Inflexibility, lack of classroom time, and student-centered classrooms are problems that I feel the flipped classroom helps solve. The flipped classroom is not a one-size-fits-all teaching approach. Each flipped classroom teacher develops an approach that works for them and their students. As an example, some teachers have students watch the videos in class. Some students watch them at home, in a car, on a bus, on a plane, turning into a Dr. Seuss book. And some even get the students to create the videos themselves. The limits of the flipped classroom are only as limited as the teacher's imagination. The flipped classroom is not top-down. The flipped classroom is 100% driven by teachers. For the model to be authentic, it needs to be initiated and created by the teacher for the teacher. How often have we attended a staff meeting to be presented with the newest flavor of the week to never give it another thought? The flipped classroom is a flavor teachers want to do because they believe in it. And it's delicious. The flipped classroom is not a teacher holiday. The flipped classroom is anything but a holiday. The amount of time that goes into creating quality videos and activities is second to none. In the classroom, teachers are no longer spending their time lecturing. Instead, they're constantly interacting with their students, inspiring, observing, and as we all know, sometimes prodding. The flipped classroom is not easy. Students have been in the traditional model of school for their entire educational career. They like playing school. Some of them are very good at it. Now that we want them to play learning, it can be a tough pill for them to swallow. And lastly, the flipped classroom is not all about students watching videos for homework. It's about students using videos when and where appropriate for their learning journey. Many of my students find that they use their classroom time so effectively they rarely have homework. And believe me, they love this. Now they have time for things that truly matter to them, like Twitter and Facebook. These are just a couple of things I think the flipped classroom is, and the flipped classroom is not.
So let's start talking about how I flip the classroom. Next week, or tomorrow, we're going to start learning about place value. Or this is going to be our new unit is place value. So as the teacher, I send out a note to the parents saying, we're going to start learning about place value. You're going to have some homework assignments with your students that we'd like you to help them with. And then you might explain, you can use all these resources to do the homework. Google, you can use Khan Academy, you can use blah, 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 blah. So then when the students start, the first assignment is, come back tomorrow and be ready to teach us what place value is and give examples of it. So then the parents can work with the students, with the Google, with the Khan Academy. They can go out and figure out what place value is. So instead of starting the lesson off in the classroom teaching what place value is, who do you have teaching? You should now have a group of 20 place value experts, correct? I want to talk to you about another tool. Well, iTunes lets you buy stuff that we have, right? Because we all have it on our phones. You can import your CDs, right? Do you know you can bring video in from the desktop? You can bring in MP3s that the kids have recorded. You can bring in PDF files that they've made. You put them into a folder, and at the end of the year, guess what? All the work the kids have done all year long, it's right there for you in iTunes, ready to be organized out, free of charge, no money for the school, easy to use. But also with iTunes, they have the store. If you go to the store, there's also this thing up here called iTunes U. iTunes U is free content, free video, audio, and digital print, basically PDF, from lots and lots of colleges, other organizations, and K-12 institutions. All free, all copyright free, all usable. Khan Academy is on here. So here I have the Khan Academy, and now inside the Khan Academy on here, I have all of the content I want. And, well, for the example, I want to look at algebra linear equations. If I decide that's what I want, I can come over here, and I can say free. I can download that. And now I have that video on my computer in my iTunes to be used, and it never will disappear. Anything you download on here will stay forever. It's yours to keep. Another one, YouTube. Now I know this is a bad word in lots of schools because they block it. So here's what I would do with the flipped classroom. Students have gone home. You've given them an assignment to be objective and teach something, right? Well, I don't want them to come to the classroom tomorrow to teach it. I want them to teach it from home or online so that I can watch it. I want them to do a video podcast. Is once I'm logged in, I now have this upload tool, and I can record from my computer. So I just want to use the webcam built into my computer. It'll grab your web camera. You hit record, it's going to record right off the web camera just like that. As soon as you stop it, it's available on YouTube for anyone to watch. The other piece to that, how do we test knowledge of students' understanding? In a traditional classroom, what do we give you at the end of the chapter? What kind of a test? Paper, pencil. That should be gone. I don't want to see paper, pencil testing. Because you know what? That really doesn't tell if I'm hitting what. I want to know if you've mastered the topic, not if you can recall it, right? Paper, pencils get to recall. We want mastery. Video. End of the chapter. Explain how to do these problems. Give them the problems, make them walk through it, and explain step by step how they did it. So let's jump back to the question about students without devices at home. How do we work that in that environment? Anyone have those problems? Some? Have you asked those students and parents outright, do you have any kind of internet access at home? Because it was amazing to me. When I was a principal in Gordon, we had a pretty low socioeconomic. How many of those families that you would not think of necessarily having money would have that? So one, it's worth asking. Two, what did Trish say Scottsbluff did for those students? They wrote a grant, but they had laptops that they could check out, right? They also did internet free of charge. If you set your flipped classroom up correctly, unless you're making them do Google searches, you could put all that content ahead of time on the device. There's a trend happening in Nebraska that's going to help some of these issues. So those are all school districts that have adopted one-to-one laptop initiatives for their students. There's up to 75 of them, last count I believe. There's 250 school districts in Nebraska. These are iPad adoption. Those are school districts with one-to-one iPad initiatives in place right now. That doesn't account for the schools at the bottom just for classrooms in the school. Have you seen what I'm missing yet? There's a key piece that I'm not having in this practice. The teacher, the mentor, that real person that I can go to and say, what am I doing wrong? I'm practicing this, I'm doing this. The mentor is the key piece. Flipped learning is a great tool to help get the kids individualized, help do stuff, let them learn things as they go on their own. But ultimately, the most important piece of it is still the teacher guiding them to the learning. So no matter what you do, don't forget that you're the most important piece. It's just a different way that you're working with the students to help get them individualized and do things the best way. So I'm done with my time with my lesson. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Otherwise, have a great rest of the